Well, we've seen momentous upgrades in our cybersecurity career paths and our cybersecurity education systems across the Alamo City. And in case you haven't noticed, cybersecurity is all around us.
Absolutely. That's why joining us in today's Leading SA segment is Professor Max Kilger, Director of Data Analytics Programs at UTSA. Good morning, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So, Professor, there's been a lot of talk regarding TikTok and the threat it poses. Can you explain in simple terms the risk of having the app on American phones?
Sure, I'd be glad to. So there are a number of sort of significant threats from the app. The first, of course, is gathering information. So when you sign up, you give them a username, an age, a phone number, an email. And then the app on top of that begins to collect things about like what you've been watching, search history, message content on TikTok and things like that. And so they're basically gathering information that could be shared with the Chinese government. And this could be a huge counterintelligence bonanza for Chinese state security services. They could be collecting personal information on people who have sensitive jobs in the defense industry or in the military or government. And traditionally, they've also been very patient in terms of collecting data about, say, students, for example, because students eventually graduate, say, in cybersecurity, and then they get a sensitive job in the government, and they'll use that information to approach them. There's a 2017 law, Chinese law that was enacted that basically requires every Chinese company to support Chinese national security efforts. So that's the first threat. The second threat really is sort of that TikTok can and does censor the information that you see. So for example, you won't see a lot of negative news about China in terms of, say, Taiwan's relationship or how the Uyghur population has been treated. And also, the third issue is that TikTok controls the algorithm that controls exactly what you see. Now, Facebook does it similarly. It has an algorithm, but Facebook's not owned by a Chinese company that also has ties to the Chinese government. And sort of finally, you have to think about how TikTok might shape information. So say, for example, the upcoming 2024 election and how TikTok might basically micro-target people by looking at the information that they've gathered and then micro-targeting messages that might influence how they vote in the 2024 presidential election.
So sticking with cybersecurity risks, there was recently a ransomware attack on the U.S. Marshals. So what happened and how can institutions around the country protect themselves from these kind of attacks?
Yeah, on February 17th, the U.S. Marshal's Office noticed that there was data being exfiltrated from one of their systems. And it was what it looks like is a pretty typical ransomware attack where there are sort of two phases to it. The first phase is the cyber criminals exfiltrate and gather valuable information from the systems that they've compromised. And then, of course, they turn on the ransomware second phase, which encrypts the files where they can then sort of demand a payment. Now, U.S. Marshal's Office has said basically that mostly administrative data, some information about investigations and things like that. They've denied that anything like witness protection information has been collected. But about 3 days ago, an unknown actor emerged on the dark web claiming to have 360 gigabytes of exfiltrated U.S. Marshal data and fairly sensitive data. But it's unclear. They're trying to sell it for $150,000. It's unclear whether this is a real offer or whether it's just a cyber criminal basically trying to cash in on this ransomware attack, but doesn't really have the data. And so to answer your second question, how do organizations protect themselves? Need to put more effort and more funding into all components of information security, including not just the technical components, but also things like formal education in terms of information security policy and procedures for employees. And that's a good thing, because data is basically the most valuable asset of many companies. And so, but for example, only about 14% of a financial institute's budget is sent to cybersecurity, and only half of that for healthcare. And backup, I guess ransomware backup is really important. You got to get the data back. If they encrypt it and you have backups, you're okay. My good friend who runs an information cybersecurity conference in Canada says basically, if your data is not backed up in 3 different physical locations, you should consider it already gone.
And so, Professor Kilger, one last question for you. We only have about a minute or so. Obviously, UTSA making huge leaps when it comes to cybersecurity. What does the new data center downtown mean, not only for the city, but also for students and possible career opportunities?
I have to say, I have a new office down there at Pedro One. It is an amazing building full of all sorts of research labs, and they've taken some of the world-class scholars from UTSA and ensconced them in that building. Fabulous teaching facilities for students, emphasizing cybersecurity, data science, data analytics, and all sorts of different disciplines. And also, it's the new home of the UTSA's National Security Collaboration Center, where academia, industry, and government come together to help protect our national security. It's a really amazing place, and they're working really hard to integrate San Pedro One into the San Antonio community. So it's really fabulous to see that happen.
Professor Kilger, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And for our viewers, you can catch this whole interview later on ksat.com.
Hello, everybody. Stefania Jimenez here. Thank you so much for watching KSAT's YouTube channel. Keep up to date with all of San Antonio's top news, weather, and so much more by clicking the like and subscribe buttons below. And once again, thanks for watching KSAT.